My name is Lisa. I'm sitting in my cozy apartment, watching the sunset outside my window. The peace I'm feeling now is a stark contrast to the chaos that unfolded just a few days ago. It all started at a family Christmas gathering. I was rinsing the last bit of sauce off my plate when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Everyone else at the table was still laughing and chatting, too full from the delicious meal to move. They were unwrapping the gifts they hadn't paid for, enjoying the holiday spirit. I wiped my hands on a napkin and pulled out my phone, expecting a work-related text or a simple Merry Christmas from a friend. Instead, what I saw made my heart drop. I had been charged $3,798.45 at a local department store called Riverside Family Mart. Another notification popped up. I'd been charged $1,250 at a high-end electronics store named StarTech. And then another, $678.92 at a toy shop called Playland. I opened my banking app in a panic, and the list of unauthorized charges kept going. Thousands of dollars had been spent at stores I hadn't visited during this holiday season. My throat tightened, and my hands started to shake. I looked up at the crowd around the Christmas tree. My nieces were holding the latest tablets from StarTech, and my nephews were showing off new VR headsets. My siblings were smiling and sipping champagne, acting like royalty. I turned to my father, Mr. Thompson, who was sitting comfortably at the head of the table, chuckling at a joke my cousin had told. "Dad," I said, barely able to keep my composure, "did someone use my card to buy all these gifts?" He didn't even blink an eye. "Yeah," he said nonchalantly, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "We had a family vote earlier. Since you don't have kids, it just made sense for you to take care of the ones who do." My jaw dropped. "You voted? What do you mean by that?" My mother, Mrs. Thompson, chimed in without even looking at me. "It's only fair, dear. You're doing well in your job. You know how expensive it is to raise kids these days." I felt like the room was spinning. I took a deep breath, stood up slowly, and looked my father straight in the eye. My voice trembled, but my words were firm. "Then you're going to love what comes next." He just chuckled. "Relax, Lisa. Don't make such a big deal out of it. It's Christmas, after all." I didn't say a word. I just grabbed my coat, my purse, and my phone and walked out of the front door. As I walked to my car that night, the cold winter wind was nothing compared to the chill of my father's words. "We voted." It kept echoing in my head like a cruel joke. Who has the right to vote on someone else's bank account? My hands were still shaking as I pulled up the receipt from my email. Over $1,200 had been spent on gifts for all 6 kids in the family, none of whom were mine. I was single and had no children, but apparently, that made me the family's designated wallet. I sat in my car, phone in hand, looking at the total on the screen. I remembered how my mother had smiled when the presents were being handed out, and how my sister Emily had looked me in the eye and said, "You're so generous, Lisa." I had thought it was just a compliment, not a sign of their scheme. Back at home, I made myself a cup of tea to calm my nerves. I wasn't rich, but I also wasn't struggling. I worked hard, and I budgeted carefully. I definitely hadn't signed up to be Santa Claus for a family that didn't even have the decency to ask. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the times they had taken advantage of me in small ways. I had paid for dinners because I earned more. I had bought birthday gifts for kids I rarely saw. I had flown in for every family event, while they never once visited me. I had always told myself, it's family. It's okay. But this time, it wasn't okay. It felt like a blatant theft. My love and kindness had been turned into a debit card they could swipe whenever they wanted. The next morning, I woke up with a purpose. I grabbed my laptop and opened my banking app. The charges were still there, bold and unapologetic. I opened the family group chat, which usually buzzed with baby pictures, funny memes, and prayer requests. I typed a single line and hit send. Dad, I'll be sending you an invoice today for the holiday expenses. Please split it equally among the parents who received gifts. You all have 48 hours. Then I turned off the notifications. Within minutes, Emily replied, "What? Is this a joke?" My brother-in-law, Mark, said, "You agreed to this, Lisa. We talked about it." My father chimed in, "No need to be so dramatic. It's just Christmas. You don't have children, and they do. It's fair." I didn't respond right away. I wanted them to feel the discomfort. By noon, I had sent out formal invoices via email, itemizing the cost, shipping, and even the tax breakdown. Then I waited. I didn't know what was more shocking, the silence that followed or the realization that none of them had expected me to fight back. But this time, I wasn't going to stay quiet. That evening, the house was quiet. All I could hear was the hum of the refrigerator and the soft clink of my spoon in my teacup. But inside me, there was a storm of thoughts and emotions. I remembered all the times I had been the good daughter who never said no. I remembered my birthdays when no one showed up, but I had driven 5 hours for my nephew's superhero-themed party. I remembered my mother saying, "You're single, dear. You've got the time," as if that made me less important. I remembered the look of disappointment in my father's eyes when I had asked for help with my rent after a job loss. I had always been the helper, the one who fixed everyone's problems, the family ATM with a smile. I thought that's what love and family meant. But as I sat alone in my apartment after giving so much, I realized I was just the easiest target. They had kept taking because I had never stopped them. My chest ached as I scrolled through old family photos. Christmases where I had wrapped the gifts, cooked the side dishes, and smiled for the camera while holding kids who weren't mine. I had always hoped that one day they would appreciate me, that they would say thank you. But this year, they had taken my money, laughed about it behind my back, and acted like I owed them. I started crying quietly, not out of sadness, but because I finally realized how alone I felt in this family. I wasn't a real sister or a daughter, I was just a convenient resource. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from my mother. "Lisa, don't make this into a big thing. Your siblings are struggling. You know that. Please don't create drama during the holidays." I stared at the screen in disbelief. Drama? They had emptied my account without telling me, and I was the one creating drama? I took a deep breath and typed, "I didn't create the drama. I just sent the receipt." She didn't reply. That night, I couldn't sleep again, but this time it wasn't out of anxiety. It was because I was clear-headed. I thought about all the times I had sacrificed my own peace for people who would use me without a second thought. I promised myself this was the last time. They thought I would calm down, that I would cave in and be the peacemaker again. But they didn't realize I was done being their punching bag. This wasn't just about the gifts, it was about respect, about my worth, and about finally drawing a line and saying, enough. I knew they would push back, but I was ready. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, sipping coffee, my laptop open, and my heart pounding. I wasn't angry anymore, I was focused. I opened my budgeting app, pulled up all the receipts, and totaled everything. Not a single one of them had offered to pay me back even a dime. They had laughed, voted, and decided I should pay because I didn't have kids. That was their mistake. I had power, financial, legal, and digital. First, I filed a charge dispute with my credit card company. I documented every charge, from online orders to toy stores and a boutique my sister-in-law had said she couldn't afford, with screenshots. It was all linked to their shipping addresses and emails. They were so lazy that they hadn't even tried to hide it. Next, I drafted a message. It was polite, clear, and to the point. Hey, just a heads up. I've filed a formal dispute with the bank for all the unauthorized charges made on my card. Since I didn't approve them, the bank will be contacting the merchants directly, and it might affect your accounts. I'll be keeping documentation for legal reasons. I sent it to the family group chat. There was no reply at first, just the 3 little dots indicating someone was typing, and then silence. But I wasn't done. I remembered how every holiday, I had bought the food and decorated my home, which had become their gathering place. I created a new group chat called Family Holiday Planning and typed, "Hey everyone, just a heads up. Christmas at my place is cancelled this year. I'll be traveling. Best of luck organizing something else. Red heart." Then I left the group. It was a bit petty, but it was also a way of taking back my power. And then, I made the final move. I had access to the family's shared photo album, which I had paid for. I backed up all the photos and removed their access. Years of memories were still safe, but now they were mine alone. By noon, my phone started buzzing non-stop. There were texts, missed calls, and emails. My cousins were asking what had happened, my mother was saying I was being dramatic, and my father was pretending it was just a joke that had gone too far. But the moment that really changed everything was a voicemail from my brother, Jake. "Lisa, hey, listen. We didn't think you'd take it this seriously. Look, can we just talk? Everyone's really upset. The kids are crying, and mom's crying. Please just stop." Stop? No. This was just the beginning. They thought the quiet girl wouldn't fight back, but I was showing them that niceness is not weakness. When you cross someone who has only loved you, you don't get to decide the consequences. The day after I sent the message, my phone was bombarded with texts. They were begging and pleading. My mom, my dad, my cousins, and my brother all wanted to know how to fix things. They kept saying it was just a mistake, just a misunderstanding. But I wasn't buying it. I had heard those words before. They had used that excuse to take advantage of me for years. It wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a pattern of disrespect. I called the bank and escalated the charge dispute to a higher authority, demanding that they follow through. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about sending a message that I wouldn't be treated like a doormat. I also made a public post on social media. It was carefully worded but sharp. It's funny how easy it is for some people to take advantage of those who always show up. But I'm not your ATM. I'm not your emotional punching bag. Not anymore. #family first, #boundaries matter. I knew it would spread. It wasn't just to vent, it was to hit them where it hurt, their pride and their image. They had always been so concerned about appearances. I got a call from my sister-in-law, Sarah. She was furious. She demanded to know why I had ruined Christmas for everyone. I didn't flinch. "You ruined it when you assumed I was just going to pay without a word. Next time, ask for consent before making financial decisions with someone else's money." Her silence was the sweetest sound I'd heard in a long time. Then came a voice message from my father. He sounded desperate, his voice shaky. He was apologizing, begging me to come home and forgive them. But I had heard it all before. All the promises and excuses. This time, I wasn't going to be swayed. The next few days were a whirlwind. My phone was like an emergency hotline for apologies. But no matter how much they begged or how many tearful voicemails I received, I wasn't going to back down. One evening, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. The cold air was refreshing. With every step, I felt more confident in my decision. I wasn't a passive participant in my own life anymore, I was in control. Back at home, I received a final voicemail from my father. He sounded defeated, admitting he had been wrong. But this time, I didn't feel the usual guilt or the urge to fix things. I knew they were the ones who needed to change. A few days later, I got a call from the bank. They had reversed the charges, and I was getting my money back. I let out a deep breath. The relief was immediate. Not long after, I received an unexpected package from my father. Inside was a small gift, a set of personalized cufflinks with my initials engraved, and a note. I hope this shows how much I regret my actions. I'm sorry for not seeing you for who you really are. You're more than just a daughter, you're my equal. I'll work on being better. It wasn't much, but it was enough. It was a simple acknowledgement, but it spoke volumes. I realized that my dad's apology wasn't the closure I needed. The real closure came from my own growth, from learning to say no and protect myself. As I watched the sunset that evening, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. It was the best gift I could have given myself.